Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar Roundtable Reflections, Turning Experience into Learning. Thank you all for coming. This webinar is sponsored by the Baskerville Institute, a nonprofit organization in Salt Lake City devoted to promoting friendship between Iranians and Americans. I'm Delara Hosseini, the project manager of the Baskerville Institute. I joined in March 2021, and I will be presenting on civic engagement and program management. Our second speaker is Naira Green. She is an undergraduate at the University of Utah pursuing a BA in political science and Middle Eastern studies. She joined the Institute in January 2022. She will present on the power of social media. Our third speaker is Miranda Quarles. Miranda is a senior double majoring in political science and history at Emory and Henry College, a private liberal arts college in Emory, Virginia. She joined the Institute in January 2022. She will present on oral history of community school in Iran. Our final speaker is Chase Killpack. Chase is a senior majoring in Middle East studies with an emphasis on Persian Farsi at the University of Utah. He joined the Baskerville Institute in January 2022. His presentation is Connecting with the Community. Each of us will do a 10 to 15 minute presentation about our work and the Institute. I will start the roundtable first with my presentation, Civic Engagement and Program Management. Make sure to type any questions you have into the Q&A for us to answer once we all finish our presentations. Let me quickly start my screen share. All right, can everyone see that clearly? Perfect. So I will be presenting on civic engagement and program management from the Baskerville Institute. This picture on the screen is from our last in-person event where I did a different presentation, which I will get into more detail later. A quick introduction about the Baskerville Institute. The Baskerville Institute is a nonprofit, nonpartisan, non-governmental organization devoted to supporting and strengthening the bonds of friendship between Iranians and Americans. The nonprofit Baskerville Institute is located in Salt Lake City and draws on the experiences and expertise of individuals around the United States and across the world. Since its founding, the Baskerville Institute has actively promoted friendship between Americans and Iranians. We have demonstrated that friendship can be used to build bridges between American and Iranian societies when official relationships are strained. What we do. The Institute runs a lecture/webinar series, hosts a digital archive, supports research fellows and student interns, publishes a newsletter and translation projects, organizes cultural exhibitions and educational programs, and otherwise facilitates bridge building between Americans and Iranians. The Baskerville Institute's core activities are structured around 4 pillars: to educate Iranians and Americans about ways in which positive change in this relationship can be brought about, to emphasize the history of friendship between Americans and Iranians that dates back over a century, to document the contributions made by Americans who came to Iran independently to help with Iranian education and training, to initiate build bridging projects that strengthen people-to-people exchanges between Iran and the United States. Now, a little bit about me. I'm currently a junior at the University of Utah here in Salt Lake City. I'm majoring in history and minoring in Persian language and culture. I am Mexican-Iranian, American, born and raised here in Salt Lake City, Utah. I joined the Baskerville Institute in March 2021. What I do. Here's a general list of what I do with the Baskerville Institute. I handle their communications and manage the interns. I create promotional materials and our newsletters. I coordinate events, webinars, and meetings. I also manage our Baskerville Institute website and help in developing new projects. For a more in-depth look at my responsibilities, I answer emails, calls, texts, and questions the Institute may receive from our contact points. I also handle most of the scheduling for the Baskerville Institute. I schedule meetings, as you can see here, and I make sure to send all the emails, reminders, and set up our Zoom for everything to run smoothly the day of. This has been interesting for me as many of our meetings go across time zones. Scheduling a day and time for a meeting with multiple people across the world has been a new experience for me. Amazing that we have the capacity to do that. I create the promotional materials such as posters, some social media posts, videos, ads, anything else we may need. When it comes to the website, I keep it up to date with its maintenance, new content, and its aesthetic. This would include updating our events page with registration links, posters, and recording links for people to easily find and access, or adding new articles written by board members or sponsors. So one of my favorite responsibilities as a project manager at the Baskerville Institute is creating our bi-monthly newsletters. It has been my job since I joined, and I like seeing how my design and skills improve with each new newsletter. Here I have the last 3 newsletters for you to see. Putting together the newsletters are a lot of work. We will have at least 20 pages with content, announcements, and events we have done and will do. It is my job to make the newsletters informational and aesthetically easy for our audience to read. Some of the information I put in it is recent events with recordings up on YouTube, upcoming webinars and events, articles related to our board members on our Institute's message, intern highlights, videos, announcements, book recommendations, call to actions. For example, we help promote a Utah Afghan Community Fund to help collect resources to help incoming Afghans to our community. Intern management. One of my current roles as project manager is managing the interns. The Baskerville Institute is proud to recognize its wonderful interns and help them grow as people and employees. We believe that fostering healthy work relationships is key to a successful career, no matter what career you may end up pursuing. I organize the intern schedules and work hours, making sure that their internship does not intersect with their class schedules. I schedule weekly intern meetings, prepare agendas, and assign tasks or projects for them. I try to assign tasks that play to their strengths and also help them explore new skills. It has been an absolute pleasure to work with our interns. One of my main tasks is also managing our webinars. The Baskerville Institute, as we mentioned, hosts webinars each month that educate our audience about Iranian-American friendship and relations. This is a general timeline of tasks I do for the webinars. I exchange emails with potential speakers, then organize meetings to confirm their topic and schedule their webinar. I create any necessary promotional materials such as posters, social media posts, ads, videos, promos, etc. to advertise the event. For the poster, I design a rough draft to approve on it until it is ready to send to our speakers. Then I send it to the speaker and gain their input on the poster. I make any changes and gain final approval from my organization and the speaker to promote it. This step might take longer depending on the number of speakers and sponsors for the event. I recall one webinar back in 2021 where we had around 6 speakers and over 10 sponsors. That poster went through a lot of back and forth edits, tweaks, and complete redesigns. The end result was actually quite nice and worth all the work. As project manager, I also manage the email list for the Baskerville Institute. I usually send email blasts to our lists, informing them of our upcoming events and encouraging them to register. I also make sure we have social media posts promoting our event on all our platforms. Then we schedule and have a test webinar and check that the webinar and presentation will run smoothly the day of. Finally, we have the day of the webinar. I take care of any last-minute questions, concerns from audience and panelists alike. I set up our allocation for the webinar, and during the webinar, I monitor the chat, Facebook Live, recording, and panelist controls, which you can see me doing here in the picture below. After the webinar is over, I collect data from our webinar and send it to the panelists. I also edit the webinar myself and upload it to our YouTube channel. Finally, I advertise the recording to our list, registrants, and panelists for them to watch and distribute. Events. The Baskerville Institute also hosts in-person events, which I help organize. I would like to highlight our latest event, the Baskerville Institute Nowruz Reception. We hosted this just last month. My roles were the following: event planning, so I had to figure out the venue, food, guests, activities. I also coordinated the interns to help me with this event. Preparing materials, myself and Naira worked together to create materials for this event. We made invitations, posters, and signs to have for the event and advertise it. I made a presentation, which you can see on the slide, for the Persian New Year, explaining what it is, its origins, and how others can join in the traditions. I did a lot of research on this. I wanted to make sure that all the information was correct. people. I organized any volunteers and interns with tasks and responsibilities to take care of for and during this event. I found and scheduled a photographer to document our event and handled communications with her. We hosted this at our offices in Salt Lake City, and I coordinated with our wonderful office management for weeks, making sure everything was ready and went smoothly the day of. I have included some pictures from that day, which is in this slide here. It was an incredibly wonderful experience, and I enjoyed setting this up and watching all my planning and preparation happen in real time. Our guests were fantastic and responsive to our hard work and were the best audience I could have had for our presentations. Chase handled the catering, and Naira was my third and fourth hand, helping me anywhere I needed to make sure everything went smoothly. Another one of my main roles as project manager is helping with new project development. I would like to highlight one of our upcoming projects scheduled to launch in fall 2022, the Baskerville Institute Digital Friendship. This carries out our mission by providing a digital portal for Iranian students inside Iran to connect to hundreds of online courses offered by American universities. Its primary mission is to make it possible for qualified Iranian students in Iran to go through one website for their research on online courses offered by American universities. This unique initiative will make it possible for Iranian students to learn more about democratic governance, market economies, and free societies. In addition, they will be able to establish networks among themselves as well as build relationships with US educational institutions. Arguably, these students comprise the most important segment of Iranian society because it is they who will forge Iran's future. This is an educational program in the interests of the United States, as well as, educationally speaking, a benefit for the Iranian students. The true significance of this project is that it will help compensate for the dearth of positive programs that the US currently manages for influencing the most important people in Iran, its youth. And then you can see our logo on the screen for this. I'm very pleased with the logo. It turned out really nice. So, closing statements. Overall, I am absolutely grateful for my experiences with the Baskerville Institute. Since I joined in 2021, I have watched myself grow into my role and responsibilities. To look back on how I have grown, thrived, and continued to improve humbles me. I cherish the people I have met and the projects I have helped develop with my own hands and with my colleagues. I have stepped forward into a new world with my new experience insights to guide me to success. I look forward to another year with the Baskerville Institute. Thank you so much for listening. If you are interested in becoming involved with the Baskerville Institute, make sure to check out our website or contact me to learn more about us and how you can join. I will now pass the stage to our next speaker, Naira Green, the Assistant Project Manager for the Baskerville Institute.
Okay, thank you so much, Delara, for that wonderful introduction. As she said, I am Naira Green, and I'm the Assistant Program Manager here at the Baskerville Institute. And I started just in January, and it's been a wonderful couple of months. I feel like I've learned a lot about collaborating, trying new things, and the role of social media. So today I'd like to share with you a little bit about what goes into my role, creating social media for the Baskerville Institute and managing the accounts. So a little overview. I'm going to be starting off with a little bit more information about me, who I am, and why I was interested in interning here. And then I'm going to go into a couple examples of my favorite projects, as well as finish up with some lessons I've learned and some reflection. So like I said, I joined the Baskerville Institute in January of 2022. I did this by setting up my own internship through the Hinckley Institute of Politics at the University of Utah, where I'm studying. I'm in my first year, and I'm currently declared as a political science and Middle Eastern Studies major. So within the Middle Eastern Studies program, students choose an emphasis either in Arabic or Farsi. I chose a Farsi or Persian emphasis, which has really sparked my interest in Iran, because I feel like I've not learned very much about that region of the world before coming to college, and the history and culture really, really interest me. So I'm taking a Persian language class right now, which I'm really enjoying, and I get to practice my Farsi a little bit in the office, which is very cool. And because of my newfound interest in Iran, working with the Baskerville to cultivate friendship and conversation surrounding Iranian American relations has been really important for me and really interesting to get further into. I also have been interested in working in the nonprofit sector for a while, so it's been amazing to get a better look at how nonprofits work, specifically in international relations. A couple of my responsibilities here at the Baskerville include creating graphics and videos, primarily for the Civic Friendship Initiative, but also for the Baskerville Institute as a whole, and managing the Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram accounts. I'll go a little bit further into that because my presentation is on social media. I also help facilitate communication, which primarily means I email our participants about upcoming events and answer any questions they have. I also do some outreach to local universities, student groups, and other organizations in order to advertise our events and look for future potential collaboration. I've also helped Delara a little bit with research and compiling resources for the new Baskerville Digital Friendship Initiative, which is very exciting. I also help her with some website upkeep and in-person event coordination. So anyways, that's an overview of what I do, but primarily what I do is the social media, creation of graphics and videos to advertise our upcoming events and to put out information on Civic Friendship Initiative, articles, educational pieces, etc. So just a little bit more about the Civic Friendship Initiative as well. It's a Baskerville program aimed at examining the theological and ethical foundations of friendship and exploring how diverse religious groups factor into that examination and how we can foster further collaboration. Education is a really big part of that. So the Baskerville hosts bi-monthly webinars with specific focus on interreligious dialogue and friendship. And so I hope to use social media as a tool to share messages about open-mindedness and educate other people about different religions. And I think the Civic Friendship Initiative has really given me the opportunity to do so. Through social media, I'm able to post articles, either from us or other external organizations, events, information, and foster that interfaith dialogue. Generally, I start out with an article, I read through it, I choose interesting quotes, pictures, and themes and integrate them with the Civic Friendship color scheme. And when creating a post to advertise Baskerville sponsored events, I also try to keep the aesthetic very cohesive and make sure that the information being presented is not only accurate, but also pleasant and hopefully attract more people to come to our events. And I hope that by sharing diverse perspectives through the Civic Friendship Initiative, social media can be a tool to prompt further conversation about acceptance and love and conversations about religion. So one way I've done that specifically is by highlighting different religious holidays and doing research into the history of religious practices, promoting that through social media. So these photos here are examples from a post I did last month during a week of interfaith holidays. So I chose to feature Purim and Nowruz and a couple other religious holidays, and just really delve into the history and share them over social media. Next, I'm going to be sharing my favorite projects while I've been working here. So thus far, my favorite project has been our Women's History Month features on different Iranian women. So I chose with my fellow intern Miranda four Iranian women to present on and discuss their contributions in their various fields. It was really amazing to work with Miranda, considering that she is across the country. And so it was great to collaborate with her, choosing these women, learning more about them, and compiling, posts to share their contributions. And I think it's really important to highlight women who have been interested in interfaith dialogue and show how their dedication and their service have contributed to conversations on equity and inclusion. My second favorite experience thus far has been doing the Hinckley Instagram takeover. So the Hinckley Institute of Politics asked me to do a takeover of their Instagram page. And essentially for the entire day, I was able to document my experiences here at the Baskerville Institute, what I do on a daily basis, and sharing it with everybody how to get further involved with the Baskerville as well as with the Hinckley Institute. It specifically taught me kind of like the scope of social media as well, because I had a lot of interactions with people who I normally would not interact with, and they asked me so many questions, and it was great to see just like how much impact I had in a single day, and hopefully got some people to like become more interested in civic engagement and interning locally. So it was a great experience overall. It also helped me think more about the intention I put behind creating social media posts, because I do put a lot of effort into creating something like aesthetically pleasing, but I also want to make sure that the content is important and it is inspiring critical thinking and engagement locally and internationally, hopefully. Then I'm going to conclude now with a quote that I love from Rollo May, which says, "Communication leads to community, that is, to understanding, intimacy, and mutual value." I chose this quote for its saliency on like a very large scale, but also its application to my experience managing social media here. I feel like I've learned a lot about the importance of communicating over social media, answering questions, creating information or informational posts, and fostering conversation through social media. And I've really, really appreciated the opportunities to collaborate with Delara, with Miranda, Chase, Dr. Bakhtiari, and that's helped me value the interpersonal connections I've gained through this internship as well. It's really helped me explore how communication builds stronger relationships, fosters collaboration, and I've been able to see that through what I've posted on social media, but also through my interactions with the lovely people at the Baskerville Institute. So thank you so much for listening. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Naira. Our next speaker is Miranda Quarles, the Assistant Program Coordinator for the Baskerville Institute. Go ahead, Miranda.
Okay, thank you, Delara. So, Sorry about that. Like they said, I'm a senior here at Emory and Henry College, and I've double majored in political science and histories. And my main project that I've done this semester with Dr. Matthew Shannon is oral histories of community school. So what was community school of Tehran? It started out as a Presbyterian mission school in 1935, and it went to an international school from the late 60s to the 80s. And it was often called the American school. It did offer boarding, and the name community was chosen because they wanted to show that it was for a diverse student body who attended community school. There was so many different types of students that attended community school, especially when it got to more of the late 50s and on. It had refugees from World War II and the Eastern Bloc come. Many Iraqi Jews started going to community school, and it was called the American school, but in all honesty, the Americans were eventually in the minority in the later years. So, where was community school located? It was located in downtown Tehran, where everything was happening. Community school, the compound itself was originally a hospital built in 1889. And from what I told some of the students would talk about when they were in class, they would be like, I think our class is in the morgue of what used to be the morgue, or they would talk about sliding down the ramps within the school since it used to be a hospital. But community school did move a few times, but the majority of its stay was within downtown Tehran. And what was the mission? The reason I included this is because these oral histories, one of the questions always asked was, what was the interpretation of the mission? Do you feel like the school stuck to the mission? And these students from all parts of the country, as well as many other lands, scattered to the four corners of the earth, take with them something of enthusiasm and idealism. It's a vision of many different people living and working together harmoniously, some standard Christian character, which this community school has given them. So I would like to say that we're not the first people to talk about community school, write about community school, study community school. Many of the alumni from community school has published their own books and articles regarding to their stay at community school. The oral histories that I studied were not conducted through Emory and Henry College. It was conducted through a master's student at NYU who did his thesis. So he interviewed around 8 different people. I listed some major questions of what I found important and what I got the most information from. And I'm going to focus on 3 of the interviews in this presentation: Lillian Robinson, Camir, and Beck. 2 of them are teachers, and Camir, he was the only Iranian student that was interviewed in the whole batch of these interviews. So I found that his input was very important because the rest of them, most of the people here are American, except for Harry and David, who are Iraqi Jews. So, the first person I'm going to focus on is Beck. There was always this question of who you were employed through, and usually at the very beginning you were employed through Comar, I think. But eventually the school broke off from the Presbyterian side of it, and you were directly employed by the school. And a few of them, some people sent post-its to get employed by community school, but Beck, he taught ancient and medieval history and British literature. He was in charge of the student newspaper, which was called the Student Prints. I was not able to get my hands on these, but I heard that they were really good. And his living arrangements, this was always asked. Some of those, I think they implied that a few of the teachers were able to live on the compound. There was a few different options of living, but he lived in a third floor apartment across from the compound. And one of the most notable things he spoke of was the obvious struggle between Iranian girls being in an American style school, and there was this issue of Western values versus home values in Iran. And I know the school itself was, it was divided by gender, but they would say that they would integrate the classes, and if a head honcho was coming, they would like scatter and go back to where they were at first. So Lillian Robinson, she was one of the first people. She stayed there the longest. She was the only person that was interviewed that stayed there a year or a few months after the revolution, but she was employed by community school for 11 years, I think from 69 to 1980 was when she was employed, but she was eventually employed directly by the school once that Presbyterian aspect was severed. She taught science and physics classes. She spoke directly of preferring a Florida state curriculum over the British curriculum. She said it was one of the most modern classes she had taught. Was her physics class was based on this Florida curriculum that was given to her. She headed the astronomy and hiking club. She also talked about in her interview that they would go and visit the orphanages of the city every Thursday, I think. So they would go, and the children would go and visit the orphanages and spend time and play with the children there. She stayed a few minutes away from the compound in an apartment. And during the time when the revolution was happening, the school got moved, and she still stayed in the same housing when the school was moved, and she just took the bus instead of moving with the school itself. Her emphasis on the interview spoke a lot of how diverse the school was during her time. She specifically said it was about 40% Muslim, 40% Jewish, and 20% was foreigners. And she spoke of that sometimes they had a football team. They implemented a football team at community school, and she would speak on that some of the children would translate from Farsi into English for the children, or Farsi or English to Farsi, and vice versa, and that the students were very well integrated within the school. Camir, he was born in Iran. He soon grew up, his parents would move to the US, I think specifically in California, and he would grow up in his early years in the US. And he attended community school on 2 different occasions, once in elementary school and later in high school. They would come back to Iran once again, and he would finish out his schooling in Iran. And he said, why did they send me to community school? Because community school is definitely for upper class, caters to an upper class people. So they talked about, some of the interviews talked about you had the people that paid for community school, and it was just like, they didn't care. It was like nothing to them. And some of the parents scraped by on sending their children to this school, but they sent him to community school because it was English speaking. I think they always wanted him to go back to the United States to continue his education and get a job there. They asked the interviewer, Mr. Phillips, he asked about the religious aspect of the school, and he said in 2nd grade, he remembers essentially what was Bible study, but when he came back in high school, they didn't really have a Christian curriculum of the time. And once again, we get this description of community school as multinational, multiracial, multicultural, and multi-religious. And since he was an Iranian national, there was a change within the curriculum within the country. He had to take a few different courses than some others because he was Iranian national, such as like Farsi, which wasn't recommended, wasn't required for the other students unless you were an Iranian national. So the value of oral history and my internship. So the importance of oral history is it's a method whereby interviews are conducted with individuals about their own experiences. It's essentially a key pillar of when studying social history and not like wartime aspects, government aspects. Why is community school important to Baskerville? Well, it emphasizes this friendship between Americans and Iranians and many other nationalities. It's over 45 years worth of stories of personal connections. Some new skills and more experience gained in my internship was critical analysis. It wasn't always easy figuring out what they were talking about in some of these interviews, and I had to sit there and think of the relevant history during that time of when they were being interviewed, because not everyone was interviewed during the same time period. So, and a lot can go on in 30 years of a country. Dr. Shannon, he's starting to interview himself. So I helped him with some questions regarding the internship so he can go and conduct his own interviews. I've learned better time management, especially when Naira was talking about, we did a woman of every month. So I had to make sure I got my analysis on the woman and my little paragraphs to her on time so we could publish that in a timely manner. I feel a lot more empathetic towards Iran. As you can see, coming into the internship, I was very honest that my only interaction with Iran was through the US media, which doesn't always give out the most positive outlook. I just had never had an interest to study the Middle East. It feels very intimidating thinking about it. But now I have a better understanding of Iran and its history and how these personal relations can be stronger than governmental relations, that we can make friends, and that just because governments are at odds doesn't mean you cannot be friends with someone from that nation. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Miranda. Our next speaker is Chase Killpack, the Outreach Liaison for the Baskerville Institute.
There we go. Hi, my name is Chase. Like you said, I'm a senior graduating in a couple weeks here at the University of Utah. My major is Middle East Studies Persian with a minor in chemistry. And like Delara said, I'm the outreach liaison for the Baskerville Institute. And what that essentially translates to is just being a loan out right now to other organizations in the Salt Lake area to help them with anything where they might need somebody who knows Persian or Dari or Pashto, which is 3 of the languages that I speak. I learned Persian at the University of Utah and then Pashto in a previous life. I was working with Afghans. And so that's kind of how I got my start at the Baskerville Institute. I first started working with the Utah Afghan Youth Committee, who is a group that was working to try and help new Afghan arrivals integrate into the Afghan community that's already in Salt Lake City, and then beyond that with the greater Salt Lake City, because people who are integrated tend to do better once they move into a different country. So, and the astute among you might have noticed that Dari and Pashto are the 2 official languages of Afghanistan, so that's why I got involved there. So what I did with the Utah Afghan Youth Committee is I went to their board meetings, more or less. We had a weekly meeting amongst the leadership, and then I just acted as a liaison between the Baskerville Institute and the Afghan Youth Committee. I helped give guidance directly from Baskerville, from Dr. Bakhtiari specifically. We sometimes gave a little bit of direction. If they needed some monetary help, then I worked that out between the two. And with the Afghan Youth Committee, we hosted several social events to help the new Afghan arrivals integrate with the Afghans that were already there, or here rather. And we also attended a few volunteer opportunities. We made spice kits, for example, and various volunteer opportunities with the International Rescue Committee, which is one of the two organizations formally charged with placing new Afghan arrivals and making sure they have a place to live, and kind of the basic like getting to know Utah and America and the new laws and social aspects that come along with that. As the outreach liaison, I also attended a few events hosted by the Utah Muslim Civic League, which is this one down here in the bottom left. And so what I did for them is, I mean, what I did for everybody essentially is just, I was a translator. So I used my Persian skills, my Dari skills, my Pashto skills, weak as they may have been, to translate between the newly arrived Afghans and whoever was trying to help them out. So with the Utah Muslim Civic League, I attended several legal clinics where they had immigration lawyers that came and helped Afghans who had come to the US fill out visa applications or refugee applications for family members that were still back in Afghanistan. And so the majority of my time at those clinics, I was just translating documents and statements and testimonies and things like that, describing the hardships that the family members rather were facing in Afghanistan due to various reasons, political reasons most often. Sometimes it was due to ethnic reasons. And so that was the majority of my interaction with the Utah Muslim Civic League. And throughout all of these interactions with all of the different organizations here, my role as far as the Baskerville was concerned was to kind of say I'm from the Baskerville Institute, and try and build a community, to try and network a little bit more. So in a separate event, I was lucky enough to work with the Utah Hazara Association, which is this one down the bottom right. I translated back and forth between Afghans, specifically ethnically Hazara, that had come to the US and were living either in hotels, or some of them had found apartments, fortunately, by that time. And so I translated back and forth between the Afghans and various charity groups that Nazifa, who is one of the main people in the Utah Hazara Association, that she had somehow recruited to donate furniture, food, clothing, kitchenware, just anything that the families might have needed for their homes. And I went with them to drop off those supplies and to speak with the families and see if they needed any more help or anything else that we didn't have at the time. And then I also followed up afterwards to make sure that they had gotten the things that they wanted and that everything on their list had been filled out. And if not, to try and help them figure out where they could go to get like rice cookers, for example, was a really big one. And then this top left picture here, I was super fortunate to meet, this is First Lady Abby Cox, who is the wife of Governor Cox, Governor of Utah. And she has a event every so often, usually some form of charity. And this one, she worked with Macy's, which is a grocery store here in Utah, to get Afghan families to be able to shop up to, I think it was $420 worth of whatever they needed. And so my role there, again, was just to translate back and forth. I helped the various families find the things that they needed as well as I could, and just ease communication. Again, similar with the Utah Hazara Association, I helped them form lists of things that they still needed that they couldn't find at the store, things like dishware, or one of them I think said that they needed a washing machine that they didn't have. And so I helped them make those lists and communicate that to Abby Cox, and then also helped communicate between some of the families that were there to volunteer their time, who a few of them, one of them said he had an extra washing machine that he didn't need. And so I helped coordinate the delivery of that. And I am currently, right now, actually talking with a few teachers at an elementary school in Murray who have Afghan children that are in their classrooms. They don't speak English very well or at all. And so I'm trying to put together a group of people, a group of volunteers to just go to schools and help kids figure out what's going on, know like when recess time is, and try and figure out what's happening in the classroom so that they can participate a little more and hopefully learn a little bit better and integrate a little bit better. And so the great thing about working with Afghans this whole time was that you get some really great food, which is right here in the middle. The Afghan families in particular are notorious for, if you go visit their house, well, if I go visit their house, they're going to try and feed me pretty much every single house I go to. So I have to be really tactical in deciding where I'm going to go and who I'm going to talk with. And also, it's just been a super humbling experience as well, working with Afghans in Utah. I have previously worked with Afghans abroad, and that was a really cool experience, but seeing them come to Utah and have a completely unfamiliar landscape, and how well that everybody who has come across pretty much with everything on their back that they owned, and how well that they've been able to adapt here, and how nice, essentially how polite and great they've been while they've been here has been really cool, and probably not something that I would be able to do if I were in their place. One separate thing, so more related to Baskerville, that I did that's not on this slide, but I did start to set up a conference between Iranian doctors and American doctors to talk about COVID-19 and the issues that we're facing, and that Iranians are facing in Iran, and then try and figure out ways to combat those and share ideas for solutions and things like that. But unfortunately, that is still on hold thanks to the State Department. But we are working on that. And then my role there again is going to be to translate as best I can. So, but yeah, but that's everything that I did for Baskerville.
Thanks, Chase. Great presentation. Thank you to all of our panelists for those amazing presentations. We will now open the floor to questions from the audience. So make sure to type any questions you have into the Q&A box. I see we already have one from a Lily Alavi. Chase, congratulations on your graduations. How many Persian/Dari translators are working with the Hazara group, and whether there is a need for additional translator?
Yeah, so Nazifa herself speaks Dari, but she's only one person. And then everybody else that participates in the events is just kind of on a volunteer basis, a case-by-case basis. So she would love extra volunteers, as many as she can get for sure. And not just extra volunteers, but consistent volunteers that can volunteer with her every time that she has an event, because every time she contacts me, and then I have a small pool of other translators I can tag, but it's kind of hit and miss whether we can get enough.
Any other questions?
Well, I have one question. First, I want to thank all of you for such a fantastic presentations, and we're so proud of you. And I know how much work it takes to prepare these, and I can tell you right now, you all prepared for participation in a major conference. And so we're looking forward to seeing you in those conferences with your work and everything. So I have one question from Miranda and one from Naira. So Miranda, tell us a little bit about what is your future plans and how working on the community school has helped your double major in political science, and how do you plan to kind of use your internship, the learning to experience for your future plans?
Yeah, so after I graduate, I'm starting a master's program in nonprofit leadership studies at the University of Lynchburg. I technically didn't tack on my history major until this year, so I essentially did a whole major within 2 semesters, which was a little wild. And I remember going to Dr. Shannon last semester, and I wanted to do an upper level history course, and he so graciously offered me this internship on the fly. And right now I think I'm about to accept a job with a Vising Corps, which is people that go and help high school students get enrolled into colleges. And when they're interviewing me and I tell them with my work with the Baskerville Institute and all of my archiving and listening to these oral histories and greater understanding of Iran, now they're always very impressed, luckily. So, but hopefully I will continue working with nonprofits like y'all and keep doing the good work that your organization does and the others that I've encountered. And I would still love to stay in touch and everything with the Baskerville Institute, even from this.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're so proud of you.
Thank you.
Nair, you talked about taking over the Hinckley Institute. Now, Hinckley Institute of Politics is an institute at University of Utah that we get interns from, and they've been very good to our interns. And I think one of them was one of the people from Hinckley was in there. So when they gave you a day of their Instagram account, what did that entail? I mean, they have a huge Instagram followers.
Yeah, so essentially at the beginning of the day, they just gave me the password to their account. I felt so powerful. And they told me to share whatever I felt was important and what I was enjoying about my internship, and kind of just gave me, free reign almost to talk about how to get involved locally. It was a lot of fun. Delara helped me out with some of the things that I posted, and I set up this thing so people could answer or ask me questions, and then I could directly message them. And yeah, I think I probably talked to 60 different people, various questions about the Baskerville Institute, about Hinckley, about Iran, which I'm not very qualified to answer. But yeah, it was really amazing to just talk to a bunch of different people and gauge their interests. So yeah, that's what I did.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much. Matt, do you have any observations? You want to add anything to this group?
I mean, I just would thank you all for all the work you do, and I'm sorry for being a little late. But man, it's being here in Emory, Virginia, I'm not always sure kind of what all the interns do, and to, kind of hear it straight from you all has been
civic purpose in mind.
Really nice. So thank you. I mean, that would be the first thing. Certainly the work Miranda has done has really helped me kind of prepare for kind of my own oral history project. She was doing oral history work in the area here, and she analyzed these pre-existing oral histories, and it was really invaluable for the project at a foundational stage. I couldn't have done it on my own. But my question is, what, next year, what would be the types of things you think interns might do for the Baskerville Institute? Are there projects that you've been doing this year that will be, kind of carried on, or do you think there might be kind of new potential avenues for the Baskerville Institute's work in the future?
Well, we are going to pursue that digital friendship project that Delara mentioned, that focuses on connecting us to the Iranian students inside Iranian universities. So one of our projects is to build stronger connections with Iranian professors and their students. As you know, the whole disruption of relations in the past decades has really kind of put us, academics and researchers, students and interns from the United States, not being able to connect to our counterparts inside Iran. So that is one of our goals as a project next year, how better to connect with our counterparts in Iran, and how better to make the Baskerville Institute opportunities for Iranian professors to work together with American professors interested in Iran. So we're working on kind of on that digital friendship a little bit to build a stronger network between students and faculty of both countries. And then on the oral histories, those are so important because those are stories of friendship. And it's a very important stories of friendship. And Reza Aslan, who is on our board, is a well-known author. He has a kind of, I don't know if you know, he has a studio, has a project called Boom Jam Studios, that with podcasts, videos, they build on stories. And so we would like to focus more on stories of Americans who lived in Iran and are here, and Iranians who interacted with Americans both ways. And in promoting his book on Howard Baskerville, which is his story, we are really looking to see more of better cultural connections between the two sides. I don't know if you've seen this. If you, Delara, give me do you have a screen share right now? Okay, yes.
Yes, you should have screen share.
Let me screen share what Reza Aslan recently just said.
I believe I wrote this book with a very specific purpose in mind. I believe that every American and every Iranian should know the name Howard Baskerville, and that name should be a reminder for all that these two peoples have in common with each other. I have a hope, and maybe it's a little absurd, but my hope is that his heroic life and his tragic death can serve in both countries as a model for a future relationship, one based not on mutual animosity, but on mutual respect.
So I think this is exactly our mission, right? And we are
I
so.
wrote this book with a very specific purpose in mind.
So that is really what we are planning to do more in the next years. And I think Reza Aslan's book on Howard Baskerville will give a huge boost to us in terms of pushing this message of friendship, the stories that Miranda talked about, Naira talked about, and so forth like that. So we see a optimistic year, and we will continue to bring more interns. And we'd love to have another intern from Emory and Henry again to, I don't know whether that intern can keep up the good work of Miranda. She's set such a high level here. And also kind of create this annual roundtable of our interns to discuss how the experience has taught to more learning for them.
Well, I think I know Miranda's graduating, but as long as Delara is at the helm of things, I think we'll stay on track and have another good year.
Yeah.
I don't know what we would do without you, Delara. Thank you.
Well,
Thank
yeah,
you.
thank you. Thank you. And Chase forgot to mention that he's going to medical school. A Middle East Studies major. Chase speaks Persian, Dari, and Pashto. So we were really fortunate to have him. He's been such a pillar of our connections to the Afghan community here that we were able to connect with him. And so by him going to medical school, we hope he could still talk about Baskerville Institute in the medical school here and keep that interest that he has.
Maybe you end up back in the region as a medical professional this time.
Yes.
That's kind of what I'm hoping, honestly. So that'd be cool.
Well, thank you so much. We will prepare a recording of this event. We will send a copy to you, edited, so you could share it with your friends and family members. And we look forward to having more engagement with you. I believe Professor Shannon is our next speaker on April 27 with the Presbyterian Historical Society. So we are trying to live stream that to our whole list, and we are going to send this roundtable recording to our Baskerville Institute list, and we're going to edit it a little bit more to put more information on each student, and then send it to our Baskerville Institute list. So anybody else? Everybody looks like sending compliments to everybody. So we are so pleased to see all of you in this roundtable. Thank you, Matt, for all the contributions you have done to us.
Thanks to you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.